You can find all the files used in this tutorial below. Select a layer, go to Filter menu, down to Distort and Displace. Displace filter uses displacement maps. Displacement maps for Photoshop are PSD format. For Affinity Photo, it's PNG format. Now they can be colour images, they can be grayscale images. However, it uses the grayscale value. For the maximum displacement, use white. For the maximum displacement, use black. Just for that, it's in opposite directions. For no displacement, just use grey in the middle, because you can go from black all the way through grey, all the way through to white. So you can create a range of displacements using these files. And of course, you can use any type of image as a displacement file, as long as it's PSD or PNG format. So if I go over here to this document, if you set the value for the scale value to 5%, then you'll get 6 pixels. You can also set it to -5% as well, and then you'll get -6. You can also set it to 100%, or obviously anything in between as well, and you get 128 pixels. Or -128 if you set it to -100. But you've got a maximum of 999, so you will get a maximum pixel displacement of 1278 pixels. Your displacement map may be a very small file, maybe 100 pixels by 100 pixels, and if you've got a very large document, you might prefer to use the tile option. If you've got a document that's much the same size as this current image, then just use the stretch to fit. Also, you've got undefined areas, wrap around, so you get pixels here wrapping around to there. You've also got repeat edge pixels, which I don't like. It sort of pulls it in. It's not so good, I think, as an option. However, this filter, unfortunately, unlike the Affinity Photo, requires another panel to appear where you've got to select the PSD file. There's no option here for that. So click OK. Got some files here. Select letters and then click Open, and you've got your displacement. You can repeat the displacement by going to Filter and Distort and Displace, but you can also use the repeat option. So Filter and Displace, and it will apply it again with exactly the same settings. You can also apply it again, and you can create all kinds of different designs using this approach. Go to the Filters menu and Distort and Displace. Set the strength. You can set it to -512 pixels to 512. Or, of course, anything in between. You can also set scale to fit. Depends on the size of your file. You can also use load map from file. So if I select that, go to a PNG file, and it has to be a PNG file. Click Open, and you can see the displacement. But you've also got the option here of load map from layers beneath. So I've got some layers here. I'm just going to go over here to the donut, and it can be anything. It can be a shape, it can be a pixel layer. So I'm going to select that one, and then load map from layers beneath, and you can see the design. However, this works on the lightness of the underlying image. White is obviously the lightest. Black, you would think that would have no displacement at all. Now, maybe you can put some comments below and say, well, it doesn't work that way. But to my understanding, it should. Basically, you've got the black, shouldn't be any displacement at all. White should be maximum displacement. It does work slightly different from the way that Photoshop works. And I have to say, slightly more confusing. You can still get great results, but I just have to think Displace in Photoshop works slightly better. So click Apply, and you've got your design. You can also repeat the filter. Go to Filters menu and Repeat. In this case, Displacement Map, even though the filter is called Displace. Select that and reapply. It's a bit more like the Photoshop's glass filter than the displacement. You can also apply the filter to shapes as well as text. Select the shape layer, go over to Filters, Distort and Displace. Load the map from file as before. Unfortunately, it's not stored. It would be very nice if it was. Ring.png, click Open and set the strength, and you can see the effect of the displacement. As before, you can apply it multiple times. Filters, repeat displacement map. However, the result again is very similar to the glass effect in Photoshop. By default, the Displace filter in both Affinity and Photoshop are destructive effects, but you can turn them into live effects. Go to Filter and Convert Smart Filter. Come up with a message, click OK, and you can see now it's a smart object. As a smart object, you can change the properties. So go to Filter and Distort and Displace. Set the value 300, etc. Click OK and select the file. This time letter.psd. And you've got the design there, and you will see straight away you've got a smart filter applied to your layer, and you can modify the displace. So just double click and you can change the setting. Maybe go for 500 instead of 300 and click OK. And of course, unfortunately, you have to select the file again. It doesn't store that information, and applied there. So you can change it at any point. You can also add multiple displacements as well as, of course, other filters as well. There are no smart objects, but you can go to Layer and New Live Filter Layer and Distort and Displace. Set the strength, go to Load Map from File, select a file and click Open. And you can see the effect there. Now this is a live effect and you can change it, delete it, etc. Also, you've got blending modes, which is really useful, so you can run through the blending modes, and also you've got opacity as well. It's a layer. You can move layers. Select the layer and drag up to another layer, and the effect will be applied to that instead. You can use a Displace filter with loads of other effects. You can use them with macros, also actions, of course, in Photoshop. You can also use them with color channels and much, much more. I have to say, I prefer Photoshop's implementation to Affinity Photo. Not saying I like Photoshop's way of doing it with two panels. I wish they would combine them into a single panel. That would be super useful. But I love the way Affinity Photo does it with the load map below. That is super useful. But the results, I don't think, are so great in Affinity. I have achieved some very good displacements, but it's a lot harder to achieve than with Photoshop. Please put in the comments how you use this filter. Do you use the filter? Do you use it for displacements of type, for images? Do you use it for very subtle ones, or maybe for creative effects, or really completely wiping out an image? How do you use the displacement filter? Do you find Photoshop's version better or Affinity Photo's better? Hope you found this tutorial of interest. Please put a like or dislike below. Always appreciated either way. Thank you much.